That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Dangerous Animals, the third film directed by Sean Byrne, which just premiered at the 2025 Cannes Film Festival in the Director's Fortnight sidebar. IFC Films and Shudder are releasing it theatrically June 6th, 2025.
Do you know Sean Byrne's other films?
Actually, I've seen both of them. I remember being quite a fan of his debut, The Loved Ones, which we had a movie night for many moons ago. And then also The Devil's Candy, both of which I saw at the Toronto Film Festival when they premiered.
What is Dangerous Animals about? Surfer Zephyr is abducted by Tucker, a shark-obsessed serial killer who feeds victims to sharks. Held captive on his boat, Zephyr must outwit Tucker and survive the deadly waters to escape his gruesome ritual. What is your pull quote?
Don't you mean Tucker?
Tucker.
Tucker. A serial killer thriller shark movie about true romance. Dangerous Animals might juggle too many elements on its straightforward breakneck path, but it's an entertaining B-movie buoyed by Hassie Harrison's enjoyable lead performance.
Dangerous Animals is a solid B-movie led by killer performances from Courtney and Hassie Harrison. I did enjoy this, but I agree. I think for people like me who love shark movies, this isn't quite at the level of like on its own, it's not a great shark movie. And then as a serial killer thriller, it also isn't enough to sustain. But when you put it together, it's...
Sure. It's familiar to a lot of other kind of mashups as well. Like Fresh with Sebastian Stan came to mind as well. This man that's, cutting up women, selling parts of them while they stay locked up in his house. It's very that.
The plot's pretty simple. Courtney plays Tucker, and we see that he runs like a shark viewing boat, not unlike 47 Meters Down, like that kind where he has a cage and lowers people so they can swim with the sharks.
Or Halle Berry movie, Dark Tide.
Or Dark Tide, yep. So the opening is a couple go on this tour. Tucker takes them out, immediately kills the male, and keeps the female captive. But then we're introduced to Hassie Harrison's character, Zephyr, and she's just an American girl in Australia who's just riding around in her van looking to surf.
In the sky at night.
And she happens to bump into this guy, Moses, played by...
Josh Heuston.
And they kind of become fast friends. They have a meet cute because he needs his mom's Volvo, he needs a jump start. And then they end up having a one-night stand. And then she kind of ghosts him in the morning, which we can get back to. But she heads to the beach to an area that he recommended. But she gets there super early in the morning, it's still dark.
Before 5 a.m.
And while she's there, she realizes that she forgot, because while they were having sex, Moses kind of rolled over onto this key that you need to change the fin on the surfboard. I don't know anything about that. But he threw it out the window for some reason. And she knew that he had thrown it out the window. So when she gets to the beach, she's like, shoot, I don't have this key. And sees a lone truck parked, goes to the truck looking for a key. And that's when Tucker comes out of the bushes, which is really creepy in hindsight because he probably was disposing of something.
And he wasn't wearing shoes.
He wasn't wearing shoes. But he gives her the key and is very friendly and drives off. So while she's standing there trying to fix her surfboard, he comes back and captures her. And then we see that he has Zephyr and the lady he captured from the beginning stuck in the bowels of the ship.
Heather.
And so for the next 45 minutes, it's...
Or even that.
Because, spoiler, Heather ends up getting killed. Tucker feeds her to the sharks. But it's Zephyr trying to figure out how to get away. And then Moses, he goes to look for her. And he thinks it's weird that her van is there, but she's nowhere to be found. And then he calls her cell phone and can hear that her phone is in the van. And then we flash forward a little bit and see him driving to the same beach area. And he notices that her van is towed away. So he goes to the police. They don't take him seriously. A one-night stand goes missing and you don't even know her last name. Boy, bye. But then we see him surfing a little bit later and he finds her board. So he calls the police and they start doing a search, but they don't find anything. But he looks at like some app where he can see footage, like surveillance footage of the beach, and he knows the night that she went missing. And he finds footage of her van pulling into the lot, and then he also sees footage of another truck pulling in, which is Tucker's truck. He zooms in, sees that it's like Tucker's Shark Experience business, whatever, Googles it, calls it, drives to the address, breaks into the ship, and at that point, Tucker had left the boat because Zephyr had thrown... He likes to record all of his killings on a VHS camcorder, and she had thrown it into the water. So he had to come back to shore to buy a new camcorder. So while he's out, Moses breaks in, finds Zephyr, but then he gets hemmed up. And so the final act of the movie is you have the two protagonists trying to escape this killer. It's very predictable. Of course they persist. Of course Tucker's killed by a shark. The end.
Yes.
I really liked Jay Courtney as Tucker.
Yeah, I think he's very entertaining. I guess I haven't seen him in a while. He looks a lot... He's kind of in his...
Daddy era.
Rugged Jack Thompson / Vincent D'Onofrio era. But I thought he was very appealing in this because back when he was proliferating all these Hollywood productions, I think they were putting him in really bland roles, kind of like Sam Worthington a bit. Is
Sure.
kind of, I think, where his career was headed. So it's kind of refreshing to see him actually get to do something.
Well, he seems like he's having a lot of fun in this role.
Yeah.
Because we almost get like a little Buffalo Bill action at one point.
Yeah, where he's dancing.
And then the opening, before he kills that initial couple, he's trying to convince, because Heather is apprehensive about jumping into this cage with sharks. And Tucker starts singing that Baby Shark song. So initially because he's an attractive man and he looks like he's just a good time guy, and then he's singing this song. But then quickly he kills the male by stabbing him in the neck and throwing him in the shark-infested water. And that's when you realize, oh, okay.
The dangerous animals are not the sharks.
No.
Because isn't the tagline something like it's safer in the water?
Yes. Which it kind of is, because we see Zephyr just swimming out in that ocean, which we'll get back to. But I also really liked Hassie Harrison.
Yeah, well, it's a very...
Are you familiar with her?
No. Well, she's in Yellowstone, along with her actual real-life husband. It's, I think in the writing of it's a well-crafted character.
Yeah, she's a badass, a loner. I thought she was really pretty. I really liked her hair. And her sort of initial chemistry with Moses is really cute. Because he is a very attractive man, but he's also very sweet. And he seems like he's found love at first sight.
Well, I'd love to believe a world where these two 20-somethings are bonding over Creedence Clearwater Revival in 2025.
Yeah,
I doubt that, but I liked that element of it.
Yes. So they bond over that, and then we cut to Zephyr's van parked in Moses' driveway, and they're having sex in the van. And it seems like they're having a great time. Post-coital, she's smoking weed or a cigarette. They're having a nice conversation. And clearly Moses is really into her. Like, well, you can come inside. I have like real food and
running water.
Like, it's real great. And she's like, no, it's okay. And then he goes inside to make her pancakes. And when he comes out with like breakfast ready, she has ghosted his ass.
I don't believe a woman that looks the way she does persists on gas station buns.
Yeah, she claims all she eats is bread, like bread rolls, and then we see her. It's actually a clever way. She steals some like Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah, that's a good trick.
Because she puts it in like a slurp, like a big gulp, and covers it with a Slurpee. So she just paid for the Slurpee, but then she goes and dumps the Slurpee and has this like half a pint of ice cream.
Clever girl.
But it's like, there's no way a woman who looks like her is persisting on Slurpees, Ben and Jerry's, and bread rolls.
Not daily, that's for sure.
But, it wasn't obnoxious. She was like a cool chick.
Yeah.
I really did like her. Okay, so where Tucker docks his boat, there's a boat next to him, and it's this guy.
Who looks like a lane stritch to me.
And he has a dog. And I thought it was funny because every time we see the dog is barking at Tucker. Like, the dog knows Tucker is bad. But when Zephyr wakes up in the boat, she sees there's this other woman there, and of course Zephyr's panicking and screaming and trying to break free, and Heather is trying to explain to her, like, girl, save your energy. But that's when we first understand that Zephyr is really, like, she's a survivor, she's tough.
She's hardened, yes.
Because she, and that she comes from, like, you know, her past, like going through foster care and the foster care system, I mean, and maybe she's been in trouble before because she knows how to, like, pick locks, and she knows how to pick handcuffs, and she's trying to find something to pick it with, and they realize that Heather's wearing an underwire bra, so she pulls that out, and she's almost able to get it off when Tucker comes in. And then he drugs them, and then the next scene is that he's setting up the scene to feed Heather to the sharks. And I was kind of shocked. I wasn't expecting Heather to die
so quickly.
Quickly.
It's a very small supporting performance, but it's also very empathetic. Mm-hmm. Like you feel for her in the little time that we get to have with her. Which I also think is a testament to a combination of the writing and the actor.
And then getting back to Tucker, we really don't know much about him, but it kind of makes sense because he aligns himself with being like an apex predator like a shark. And so sharks just sort of, you know, kill, like instinctually, like mindlessly they kill.
But he's not mindlessly killing, he's targeting.
Well, he is targeting, and he's also, like I mentioned, recording all the killings, and then he's keeping keepsakes. He cuts off pieces of the victim's hair and like attaches it to a hook, and then uses that to decorate the VHS cassette case. And that's when we realize, because we see him putting Heather's recording in his like keepsake cabinet, and we see that he has dozens of victims. So that was kind of unnerving.
Yeah, he's been doing this for a while.
He's been doing this for a long time. We also see that when Zephyr is chained in the bowels of the ship, she sees someone has carved their name into the wall, and then upon closer examination, she realizes that clearly names have been painted over. So she starts scratching off the paint, and that's when she realizes, like, oh, many people have been in this situation. So of course that's unnerving.
This is the second surfer-centric film set in Australia this year that makes it seem like things are wild over there.
Well, actually I was thinking of that Nicolas Cage movie, The Surfer, because that movie makes it very clear that there's a lot of, what do they call it, localism, or where like the local surfers don't like tourists. So when we realized that Zephyr is a tourist going place to place to surf, my first thought was like, I hope, like, is she safe doing that?
She's pretty brave. That's a very American thing for her to do, though, because even how she goes to Jay Courtney's truck in the dead of night, basically, to just rummage around in his shit, it's like, wow.
But it turns out that she would have been lucky to just only have to deal with, you know, territorial surfers.
Right.
Because instead she has to battle a serial killer. I will say that I think the first hour worked really well for me, but once Moses sort of figures out through the wave, I forget what it's called, the wave something. Wave Watch app, and then he puts... It just all seems like, I mean, I wrote down that he's like the most dedicated one-night stand in history. Like, he's really trying to figure out where this lady went. And I don't know that it made sense to me that he would try so hard to find her.
Right. There almost needed to be something kind of wrong with him to explain why he was so sprung so quickly, I guess.
Well,
But that's what this film is about, like with the CCR song that he's obsessed with.
Sure.
That is it about nothing, or is it about love?
I think, you know, I did enjoy this movie, and my score will reflect that. But I do think because the shark component of it isn't to the level that I would want, and then also the sort of serial killer thriller component is also very diluted. Like, there is really no, like, tension in, like, finding this guy. It's in a matter of, like, a 3-minute sort of sequence that Moses finds Zephyr in Tucker's boat.
Yes. I think it's more about the face-off between Jay Courtney and Zephyr. That because it's like she's almost getting away all the time, and she's fighting back hard, and there's some severe bodily harm that happens to
everybody. That's my next note, is that I think the whole shark fishing, like, analogy that, or metaphors that they use throughout get a little tiresome, because Tucker tells a story about how the marlin is like a very desirable fisherman's fish to catch because of how like resilient they are and how they'll keep trying to get away. And they like, the fishermen like the challenge. And so, of course, we would align that with Zephyr because she keeps, I mean, there are like 4 or 5 occasions where she almost gets away and gets caught again. And I did think that, you know, after like the 3rd time, it was like, okay, girl, can we, because even till the very end, which I guess we can skip to. So at the very end, because Zephyr is able to escape one last time and she swims to like an island where a wedding is happening, and then Tucker is able to capture her, bring her back. And originally he was going to kill Moses in front of Zephyr, but now he's mad because Zephyr keeps escaping. So he switches it and he wants Moses to watch Zephyr get killed. And then that's when so up until then it was like bull sharks and mako sharks. But then of course, in the very end, guess who shows up? A great white shark. And I will say that was pretty creepy. And she ends up being dropped into the water. Mm-hmm. And I did think kind of a crazy scene is that the great white shark kind of spares her. Mm-hmm. And like it looks into her eyes and keeps swimming, because prior to her falling in, Tucker had stabbed the shark. So the film makes it seem like the shark, the great white, wants revenge against Tucker. I thought that was a bit much.
Well, have you seen Jaws: The Revenge?
So she gets back on the boat and uses a harpoon to shoot Tucker back into the water. And then, of course, immediately the great white kills Tucker in a shot that I thought looked a little... It wasn't at the level of the rest of the movie.
Sure.
I thought the CGI was lacking. But all of that just felt a little too... convenient and crazy to be.
Well, I think because the story is, dare I say, quite basic, they're heaping all kinds of other elements on it to remain entertaining. Which is why it's so strange seeing this at Cannes, because this is definitely not a film that you'd expect. And, you know, maybe that's the counter-programming that somebody tried to insert this year. But I will say the audience that I initially saw it with was much more responsive than the second round.
Yeah, we saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse, and it was a packed screening, and there wasn't a lot of reaction. You know, we just reviewed Bring Her Back, and I mean, the audience was dying over some of these gruesome scenes. I will say in this one, there is one pretty gruesome scene where Zephyr is trying to get out of the handcuffs, and things are pretty dire because at that point, Moses is locked up with her, and he's been stabbed, so he's badly injured. And she, like you've seen in many movies, breaks her thumb to try to get out of the handcuffs, and it doesn't work. So I've never seen this, I think, where she bites off her own thumb to get out of the handcuffs, and it works. That was pretty gruesome.
That's pretty good. I don't know what kind of, I mean, you know, again, they're upping the dramatic stakes in a way that I think is kind of eloquent for what it is, because you know, she's struggling to survive before that, but she doesn't really kind of go into hyperdrive until this man that she has feelings for is there in front of her.
Right.
And because I think the ultimate message of the movie is that as humans, we are not meant to be alone. And she has, you know, found somebody that might be her potential, you know, special person.
Sure.
And so then she's kind of becomes like a superhero almost at that point with the shit she's doing.
There was one point, like I think it's like the second time Zephyr is able to escape. She uses a flare gun in like the dining room of the ship, and it catches on fire, and we never see it get put out. Like I assumed that the ship was going to burn, but it doesn't. But Zephyr is able to hurt Tucker pretty badly. She hits him in the head with a frying pan. She stabs him in the neck, or like underneath his clavicle, which I guess is not a lethal.
With a plastic shank.
Yeah, with a plastic shank, and then she also stabs him through his hand.
Yes. And
he seems fully unaffected. But whatever. I mean, he's a big dude, and it's kind of fun to watch him. He's almost like Jason Voorhees. Kind of. But yeah, I thought that it was...
I wish we'd get a little more backstory about him. We learned that he had survived a shark attack as a child.
That's right.
And Heather asked him, like, well, wasn't somebody watching you? How were you alone in the ocean at that age? And so he seems like a person that's also kind of neglected and solitary. And I think again, like I praised some of the character development, but I think that the script could have used a little more finesse in kind of putting all the pieces together.
I would have foregone learning more about Tucker to get better like, I would have preferred a different way for Moses to find the boat. Because that was just a little too simple and easy.
Well, because at the point where he thinks about that, it's like these damn police wouldn't do that.
Well, because that was my first thought. Like, why don't you call the police and tell them you need to go check out this boat? Because I like, look at the video I found out. That truck was there the night she went missing. Go talk to him. So, but again, it's effective. It's fun. I can see why a lot of people are talking about it. It does feel inventive.
Well, and I think people are hungry for at least a decent. Again, it's not at the level you would like it to be for a shark film, but there are many shark film releases every year that are cheap and terrible.
This is elevated for sure. I'm just saying that I think the tagline is very appealing, right? Like the serial killer shark movie. It 100% caught my attention. But when it all boils, I don't think it's strong enough in either direction to work on its own. But together, it is enjoyable.
But I liked how it looked. I think the score is pretty good. I think this is a fun film to see in a theater. It's perfect for like a Midnight Madness sort of crowd.
Yeah. And I would definitely watch this person's next film.
You should go. You have seen The Loved Ones, which I think the lead actress's name in that is Robin McLeavy, who is also about a young man getting locked up in a basement. And the Devil's Candy, you know what the Devil's Candy is, right?
No.
Children.
Oh, no, I had no idea.
But yes, I think that he's a very entertaining genre director, and this is in keeping with his brand.
What would you give Dangerous Animals?
3.
I think it's good. I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.